Hello and welcome to another edition. This is the 90th edition of Ask Ron. Question today is, what wins bodybuilding contests? And the reason I'm doing this one is because we're in contest season now, and every Monday morning we have all kinds of posts from people who placed in contests, or we have results of contests, amateur and pro. And it's clear that a lot of people making the comments don't have a real understanding what the criteria are, what are judges looking for, what wins contests. And rather than me just saying, you people are ignorant, blah blah blah, you don't know what the judges are looking for, I thought, why don't I try to educate them a little bit? I don't know how many of those people are going to see this, but I'll do my best. So I'm going to focus mainly on bodybuilding. At the end I'm going to touch on classic because there are slightly different criteria there. But, what are the judges looking for? What wins contests? It's the best total package. It's the best combination of these factors: structure, mass, shape, condition, balance, and presentation. So I'm going to take these one at a time. Structure. What is structure? It's a bone structure. It's something you're born with, unfortunately. I say unfortunately because you can't change it. You can't change your bones. That's whatever they are, that's what they are. So what you're looking for is wide shoulders, narrow hips, arms and legs that aren't too short or too long. And you're also looking for torso length, not too short, not too long. You don't want a really super long torso. You don't want a really short torso. Super long, you tend to have a weird look, elongated. Super short, you have a real squat look like a toad. You don't want that either. You don't want very, very short arms and legs. You don't want very, very long arms and legs. So it's a structure that's pleasing to the eye. And when you have that frame and build on it, you have that really nice frame, the ideal frame, call it the X frame, that's when you have a really nice physique. So first of all, if somebody has really narrow clavicles, really wide hips, really short or really arms long, if anything's too off of that ideal, it's not good. So that's what we start with, the structure. Now mass, especially in bodybuilding, you want a certain amount of mass. That's why it's called bodybuilding. People are trying to build muscle. So if someone doesn't have a lot of mass, they're not going to do that well. When we're talking about this total package, any one of these factors, if it's missing, is probably going to hurt you. You need to have a really good structure. You need to have good amount of mass, good shape, really good condition, balanced physique, and good presentation. If any one of those are missing, you're in trouble. So mass, yeah, you definitely want to have a certain amount of mass. And this all being said, just because someone has one of these things in abundance doesn't mean they should win if they're missing one or more of the other categories. Shape, unfortunately, again, this is also genetic. Your shape is what it is. The ideal shape in bodybuilding, muscle shape, is round, full muscle bellies. They come off the bone. You think of somebody perfect shape. You think of somebody like a Flex Wheeler, Sean Ray. They had just very nice, very pleasing shape. We're seeing a lot more of that now in the classic physique division. Guys with really great shape doing very well. Classic is more about shape than bodybuilding. Although, that being said, if you have pretty bad shape genetically, as a bodybuilder, you're probably never going to do that well. You do need to have at least nice shape. If you have really spectacular, outstanding shape, even better. Condition is, it's not just how low your body fat is. That's obviously the first big component of condition. But we're also looking at things like detail, separation between the muscle groups. For example, you'll see sometimes a guy with big quads, but there's no separation. There's no detail in them. A good example is Rami. Rami, Mamdou El-Sbaye. Incredible size to his thighs. Maybe the biggest thighs on a bodybuilding stage ever if you took a tape measure to them. I think they are like 36 inches in shape or something. They're enormous, okay? But they don't have the most detailed, chiseled separation. You look at someone like a Sean Roden, a Phil Heath, a Kai Green. They have such deep separations between each of the quad heads, such striations and little notches and details in there. it makes it that much more impressive than just having the low body fat. You can get a lot of people down to very low body fat, and it's still not that impressive because they don't have the details. You know, we call it muscle maturity, but I've seen it in much younger people to know that it's not always just a factor of training for X amount of years. You know, with Ramy, I hope Ramy gets it. I hope, you know, Neil Hill can help him get it, but am I certain he's ever going to get it? I'm not. I'm not sure he's ever going to have all that detail in the muscle maturity. Let's hope so, but we don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. Other people have it from the time they're teenagers, so it's clearly not something that requires decades of training, because I've seen like sometimes 17, 18-year-old kids with really clean muscle separation and cross striations in their triceps and their quads. I'm sure they weren't training for 20 years if they're only 18 years old, right? So next thing is balance. How balanced is the physique? They say shows are won from the back. Well, if everything else is equal, everyone looks awesome from the front, and then they turn around and one guy's got an awesome back and no one else does. Yeah, now shows are won from the back because he's the only one that also has a back. But it's about balance and proportion. Everything should be in proportion to everything else. You know, I've struggled for years because my arms aren't in proportion to the rest of my physique, and that's hurt my placings. That's hurt me as a competitive bodybuilder. It hurt me badly. Had great legs, but, you know, I can't say, wow, my legs are better than... It doesn't matter what, if you have one body part better than, that's head and shoulders above everybody. The best balance, you know, you're supposed to have shoulders, chest, arms, tight waist, quads, hams, calves, even forearms. Everything is supposed to be developed in proportion and balance to everything else. So if you have a couple good body parts and you're lagging in other areas, you don't really have a complete physique. You don't have a physique that's going to go very far, because sometimes that'll take you a certain distance. You might do well at the local level, the state level, maybe even the regional level. Once you get to the national level, if you don't have a balanced physique, if you're missing anything, if you're missing hams, if you're missing a back, if you're missing a chest, sometimes people will skate by and turn pro, especially these days because there's so many more pro cards being handed out. But the higher up the food chain you go in bodybuilding, the more it's going to hurt you if you're missing anything. They're looking for complete physiques. And the last thing I'll talk about is presentation, because although I do feel it's very, very important, it's the least important out of all these factors. And I say that as someone who has been a posing coach. I'm still a posing coach. And it's nothing against the posing coaches. I know you want to harp on that. But here's what I'll say about posing and presentation. If everything else is equal, everything else we talked about so far, and one person presents himself poorly, it's going to hurt him. Otherwise, not really. Case in point, I'll use an example from a few years ago. I was at a local show down in Connecticut. I think it was the same show that Boston Lloyd was in, and the winner was actually Justin Rodriguez won that show. But the teenage division had 2 kids in it. That's it, just 2, which is typical these days, if they even have one. It was a white kid and a black kid. The white kid was a phenomenal poser, polished. I believe he had worked with Kenny Wallach, who he's one of, if not the foremost posing coaches in the country, if not the world. People come from all over. They work with him on Skype. This kid had clearly worked with Kenny. He hit all his shots perfectly, transitions, kept everything tight, quarter turns, everything looked great. This kid knew how to show himself off. Physique-wise, okay physique, you know, good for him, good for a teenage kid, nothing spectacular. The black kid had awesome genetics, thick pecs, big arms, big quads. He was clearly going to go further in bodybuilding if he wants to, if he wants to pursue it, just because he has the genetics for it. And bodybuilding is a sport where you have to have really gifted genetics if you're going to go far. You'll hear people say, well, if you work hard and you really believe in yourself, and yeah, that's nice, but you're not going to get that far without really good genetics. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. So anyway, this kid, he did not know how to pose. In fact, he had to look at the other kid. Every time a pose was called out, side chest, he'd look to see what the white kid was doing first, and then he would try to copy it. Rear delt bicep, he'd have to wait a second and see what the other kid was doing. Okay, that's a rear delt bicep. I don't think he'd ever posed before in his life. I don't know, he had just dieted, or I don't know how he prepared for the show. All I'm saying is This kid had no idea what he was doing, none. But it was easily hands down. He was the winner. Maybe if he had just stood there and didn't hit any poses, they would have let the other kid win, I guess. But he posed well enough by just copying what the other kid was doing. Maybe the first time he'd ever hit these poses in his life, I don't know. But he won handily. So these are all the factors, and these factors they all contribute toward what the judges are looking for. Just being really good in one thing, being the most ripped guy, doesn't matter if you have terrible shape or if you're not very big. Just being the biggest guy doesn't matter if you're not in shape, if you have terrible shape or structure. All these things play into it. So the judges are looking for the people with the best combination of these attributes. Like I said, in classic physique, shape and structure definitely have more importance, because there's a weight limit, there's a cutoff. So you're not going to usually win in classic just by being the biggest guy. In bodybuilding, a lot of times, especially at the local or regional level, you'll see somebody who does have a lot of mass and gets in great condition. They might be missing a body part or two. They might have kind of funky structure, but if they have an overwhelming amount of mass and they brought good condition, a lot of times that's good enough to win at that level. Once they get a little further up the chain, it's not going to cut it, but at that level it's good. In classic was made for aesthetics. Nice shape, nice structure, nice balance. That's what they're looking for. Nice presentation. Presentation definitely seems to play a larger role in classic physique than it does in bodybuilding as well. Because, theoretically we're hearkening back to the days of classic bodybuilding when guys like Arnold and Ed Corney and Frank Zane, they had very polished posing and presentation. It was graceful. It was beautiful. It was art. You were looking at living, breathing artwork. So that's what the judges are looking for. That's what wins contests. It is the best total package of all these attributes, all these qualities. That's what the judges are looking for. Just being great in one or two of them and being, deficient in the others, you're not going to get very far. But the person who has the most, the best combination, the best in all those categories, that's typically who's going to win. So, if you're watching this and you've been haven't done as well as you want in competition, or if you're someone who goes to competition to support a friend or a training partner or whatever, and you've left angry because the person didn't do well and you didn't understand why, I hope I've been able to make you understand maybe why your buddy or your friend or whatever, your training partner, didn't do as well as you thought they should have. Maybe now you understand what the criteria is and how they're being judged, what's expected of them, what they're looking for. So thanks for watching this edition of Ask Ron. Send me some questions in the comments if you want, and maybe we'll get an episode going based on your question. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.